Today, we're talking the top buys and sells for fantasy football ahead of week 8. And when you're making your deals this week, be sure to use our trade calculator at yardsperfantasy.com. It's fully customizable, it's free to use, and you'll never lose a trade again. Find it now at yardsperfantasy.com/trade-calculator. I talked up Tyrone Tracy as a sleeper all summer. You're welcome. And he delivered in a big way in relief of Devin Singletary in weeks 5 and 6. But with Singletary returning in week 7, it was fair to question how the opportunities in that backfield were going to be distributed moving forward. I mean, clearly Tyrone Tracy is the more explosive and more talented running back. But Singletary is still a trusted veteran, and he has that connection with Brian Daboll going back to their time with the Bills. However, Daboll did the noble thing and continued to let Tyrone Tracy operate as the RB1. He led the Giants running backs with a 67.1% snap share, while Devin Singletary was on the field for 20.7% and Eric Gray worked in for 10.3%. And Tracy dominated the passing downs work with 27 routes to Singletary's 6. And that in itself is valuable considering the Giants oftentimes find themselves in pass-friendly game scripts. Now, the rush attempts were a little underwhelming considering the team was in comeback mode for much of the game, but Tracy still did have 50% of the running back carries. This was the first time in 3 weeks that Tyrone Tracy didn't absolutely smash in fantasy football. But the usage was extremely encouraging, and we've already seen a 2-game sample of what he can do when he gets rolling. Now, there is certainly a risk that this was just an effort to ease Devin Singletary back in after that groin injury, so we can't be all the way in just yet. But it is very evident that Tyrone Tracy is going to maintain a significant role in this offense, one that could and likely will expand as we get later into the season. So trade for him now while his value has dipped and let him be that league winner for you down the stretch. Malik Nabers was the talk of the town during the first 4 weeks of the season. He was breaking out all over the place, and he was well on his way to being the next superstar wide receiver and league winner for fantasy football. But the temperature has cooled just a bit considering he missed 2 games and then he returned to an 8.1 fantasy performance. But he was still targeted 8 times and he had a very healthy 27.5% target share in week 7. And after the Giants play the Steelers in week 8 on Monday Night Football, the schedule starts to become very favorable for the Giants passing attack. They got matchups against the Commanders, Panthers, Bucks, Cowboys, Ravens, Falcons, and Colts still left on the slate. I'm not saying Malik Naber is going to be cheap to acquire, but the shine is worn off just a little bit. A month ago, he would have been impossible to trade for. Now there might be a chance. So I'm starting to feel out the Nabers manager in my league to see if I can get my hands on this rookie stud. It was a very encouraging debut for Amari Cooper in his first game with the Bills. He got 4 of his 5 targets for 66 yards and a touchdown. That's about what we would get from him in his best outings with the Browns. But what's so encouraging about this is that Amari Cooper did this in a very limited role. He always ran about 100% or something close to it when he was with the Browns. On Sunday, though, he was predictably limited to a 34.3% route participation. That wasn't surprising at all considering he had only been with the team for 5 days, had no familiarity with the quarterback, the offense, or the playbook. In fact, if you watch his touchdown, you can actually see Amari Cooper turning and asking Keon Coleman before the play what route he's supposed to run. Coleman demonstrates the route with his hand. Cooper runs it. Allen finds him in the end zone for a touchdown. It was really quite incredible. But this just all goes to show how much potential Amari Cooper has in this offense once he gets acclimated. He has the best quarterback of his life, and he's going to be the clear #1 target in this offense. We're going to see his routes go up more and more over the next several weeks as he gets comfortable in the offense, as he learns the playbook, and as he builds trust and chemistry with Josh Allen. We could see numbers from Amari Cooper that we've never seen from him before. He is very high on my list of guys that I want on my fantasy team as I make a run for a championship. And if you believe Amari Cooper repeats his week 7 performance in a shootout with the Seahawks in week 8, then you can play this pick'em on Underdog. Lock in your pick now and use promo code YARDSPER for a free pick and a deposit offer of up to $1,000. That's promo code YARDSPER on Underdog. Let's get it. Week 7 was brutal for Devonta Smith. He was targeted just twice, caught one for -2 yards, and he finished the day with 0.8 fantasy points. But we know exactly what Devonta Smith is. This was clearly just an outlier performance. He was still on the field for the same number of routes, the same number of snaps as A.J. Brown. It was just a weird day that saw the Eagles get out to a big lead, lean on Saquon Barkley in a revenge game against his former team, and they asked Jalen Hurts to pass the ball just 14 times. Not a big deal. We're going right back to Devonta Smith, especially with their schedule about to open up. The Eagles' next 10 games include 2 matchups with the Commanders and the Cowboys, plus games against the Bengals, Jaguars, Rams, Ravens, and Panthers. All of these teams are favorable matchups for wide receivers. But before we get into my sells for week 8, make sure you're smashing that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, let me know what your trade questions are. I'll be happy to help. Good for Tank Bigsby. He took advantage of a perfect situation and he turned it into 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's great. But unfortunately for him though, the Jaguars don't get to play the Patriots again this season. With the Jaguars ahead by a lot against New England, they were able to lean on the run game. But the Jaguars are not just suddenly good, they just happen to run into possibly the worst team in football. They're not usually going to be in such a positive game script like that. In fact, they'll likely be in comeback mode more often than not. I mean, just look at the upcoming schedule. The next 5 opponents are the Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Lions, and Texans. Not only are the Jaguars likely going to be in negative game script against all of those teams, but most of them have pretty stout defenses as well. Tank Bigsby is certainly not going to be a big part of the plan in those games, considering he's an absolute zero in the passing game. He has just 2 targets on the season and 1 catch. In this game against the Patriots, it was Dearness Johnson who led the backfield in routes, and he had a 20% target share. And don't forget, Travis Etienne is going to be back. Even if you believe Tank Bigsby is going to continue to lead the team in carries, Etienne isn't just going to go away. He would be involved in a way that would severely limit Tank Bigsby's chances of having a big game. And Doug Peterson continues to reiterate that Travis Etienne is the team's #1 running back anyway. It's very likely this was the best performance we're going to get from Tank Bigsby. This was his Isaiah Likely in week 1 game. It's only going down from here. Get out while you can. Keon Coleman delivered his best performance of his rookie season so far in week 7. He caught 4 of 7 targets for 125 yards, good for 16.5 fantasy points. While it was an impressive performance, there is quite a large elephant in the room. His name is Amari Cooper. As I noted earlier, Amari Cooper only played 34.3% of the snaps in his Bills debut. That role is only going to get ramped up from there. Cooper was always hovering right around a 100% route participation rate in Cleveland. I'd expect that to be pretty similar in Buffalo once he's fully acclimated to the offense. That is bad news for Keon Coleman, considering all 7 of his week 7 targets came with Amari Cooper on the sideline. The path for Keon Coleman hitting this year was being the #1 wide receiver in a Josh Allen offense that lacked an alpha wide receiver. Well, the Bills just got an alpha wide receiver. And it's hard to ignore the obvious truth that if the Bills had felt better about what they had seen from Coleman, they probably wouldn't have made the move to get Cooper. And now he's at best the 3rd option in the offense behind Amari Cooper, behind Khalil Shakir, and maybe even Dalton Kincaid. Coleman can still be like a what the heck flex, but anyone thinking we're going to get a repeat of week 7 on a consistent basis is just fooling themselves.